ようこそ領域挽回。
Hey anime fans. What if Gojo Satoru became the villain? Not because he was possessed, manipulated, or controlled by some ancient curse, but because he genuinely lost faith in humanity. Think about everything Gojo went through. His best friend became a mass murderer, the higher-ups constantly opposed him, Yuji was ordered to be executed, countless innocent people died in Shibuya, and after all of that, he was sealed inside the prison realm. Alone. With nothing but his thoughts. Imagine spending months trapped in complete darkness, replaying every failure, every death, and every betrayal over and over again. Eventually, Gojo reaches a terrifying conclusion. Maybe curses aren't the real problem. Maybe humanity itself is. And from that moment on, everything changes. When Gojo is finally unsealed, everyone expects him to return as humanity's savior. They expect him to hunt down Kenjoku, restore order, and lead the world back from the brink of collapse. Instead, he disappears without a trace. Days pass, then weeks, and nobody knows where he is. Yuji, Yuta, Maki, and the others assume he's preparing for the final battle. But then the impossible happens. Jujutsu headquarters is completely wiped out overnight. Every elder, every corrupt official, and every influential figure responsible for decades of suffering vanishes. Before the world can even process what happened, every television and electronic screen across Japan suddenly activates. Standing there is Gojo Satoru. Calm, confident, and unlike anything they've ever seen before. He declares that humanity has spent centuries creating its own suffering through fear, hatred, greed, and incompetence. He says weak leaders have ruled the strong for too long, and from this day forward, sorcerers will govern the world. At first, some people support him. Sorcerers have been treated as expendable weapons for generations, after all. But it quickly becomes clear that this isn't reform, it's conquest. Governments become powerless, military forces disappear overnight, and entire nations begin living in fear of a single man. Realizing the threat before them, Jujutsu High makes a decision nobody thought would ever be necessary. Gojo Satoru is officially declared an enemy, and his own students become the resistance. 1 year later, Japan has transformed completely under Gojo's rule. Crime is at an all-time low, curses are rapidly disappearing, and cities are safer than they've ever been. On the surface, it looks like Gojo succeeded. But there's a price. Freedom no longer exists. Anyone who publicly opposes the regime simply disappears. Many sorcerers willingly join Gojo's cause, believing that strength should determine authority and that he is building a better world. That's what makes this version of Gojo so dangerous. He isn't entirely wrong. He's just taken his beliefs to an extreme. While Gojo tightens his grip on society, Yuta emerges as the leader of the resistance. Unlike his former teacher, Yuta still believes people can grow, improve, and change. The conflict between them becomes more than a war. It becomes a clash of ideals. As the resistance expands, ordinary humans and sorcerers begin fighting side by side. Not because they believe they can overpower Gojo, but because they refuse to surrender their future. Watching the resistance grow stronger, Gojo becomes increasingly ruthless. The man who once protected his students now sees them as obstacles standing in the way of his perfect world. Eventually, he reaches a point where he is willing to kill them, becoming the very thing he spent his entire life fighting against. The final battle takes place in Tokyo, a city already scarred by countless tragedies. Standing above the ruins, Gojo waits alone. Across from him stand Yuji, Yuta, Maki, Hakari, and the next generation of sorcerers he once dreamed would surpass him. The battle that follows is unlike anything the world has ever witnessed. Entire districts vanish from the shockwaves of their attacks. Buildings collapse. The sky itself seems to tear apart. Yet despite his overwhelming power, something unexpected begins happening. Gojo slowly realizes that he's losing. Not because his opponents are stronger, but because they're fighting together. They are trusting each other, protecting each other, and refusing to abandon one another. Everything Gojo stopped believing in is standing right in front of him. Eventually, the battlefield narrows until only Yuta and Gojo remain. Student versus teacher. Hope versus control. During their final confrontation, Yuta asked a simple question: if Gojo wanted to create a better future, why did he stop trusting the people he raised to create it? For the first time since his descent into darkness, Gojo has no answer. Deep down, he realizes the truth. He never truly lost faith in humanity. He lost faith in people ever changing. That belief transformed him into exactly what Geto once became, a man forcing his vision of the world onto everyone else. In that moment, the strongest sorcerer in history finally falls. Not because he was defeated in battle, but because he finally understands what he became. What makes this what-if scenario so fascinating is that villain Gojo wouldn't be terrifying because of his power. We already know he's powerful. What makes him dangerous is that part of his argument actually makes sense. After everything he's suffered, it's easy to understand why he would reach that conclusion. But at its core, Jujutsu Kaisen has always been about the next generation. And in this timeline, Gojo's greatest students become the ones who save him from himself. Not by overpowering him, but by proving that the dream he spent his life fighting for was never wrong. The only thing that was wrong was the path he chose to achieve it. And that is what I think would happen if Gojo Satoru became the villain.